Just bigger. All right, so today we have a very special guest, Nawaz, right over here, all the way from the UK. Uh, had some time to share some value. Hey, Nawaz, how you doing today?
I'm good, Boomer. How are you?
Doing good. So talk to me. So I know you recently got into sales. How many months has it been? Like 3 or 4 months more?
It's actually been more than that now. I started learning about sales in February this year.
Mm-hmm.
Started obviously working with the first influencer from May. It's about 7, 8 months now. Going
Gotcha.
strong still.
7, 8 months. Now, the most impressive thing for people who don't know you, I think, is the amount of growth and knowledge that you're able to have at such a short period of time. But before we even go there, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, obviously, we know you're in the UK because I shouted out loud. Tell us about your background and what was your life growing up in the UK and how you got eventually got into sales.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of my background, in the UK, obviously it hasn't been that, very tough. I was actually doing the traditional career path. Started going college, university, qualified as an accountant in 2018, I think it was.
Okay.
And just like many other people who are in a 9 to 5 job, I was the same thinking, this can't be it. There's something more.
Mm.
And, you can't just be going into work Monday to Friday, coming weekend, dreading every Sunday that you have to go back to work on Monday again.
Right.
So I was looking for opportunities for a while, but for one reason or the other, things just didn't work out, right?
Right.
Then come one of my friend who actually mentored me into closing. He mentioned he started doing it 2 years ago, and this is a guy I trust a lot,
Right.
right? So I was like, if he's telling me, he's not going to sell me a scam, essentially, right? Because that's the
Right.
word that goes around a lot when it comes to online stuff. So yeah, we got into it. I learned from him, and then from May this year, like I mentioned, I've been doing that. Initially, I actually had the job as well as my closing going on the side,
Right.
and that was managing closing, my family life, as well as having a closing and a full-time job at the side on the side as well.
Right.
But since October, I am fully doing closing now. So yeah, that's a bit more about me really.
Gotcha. So you are fully dedicated on sales, and that's your full time job essentially, right?
Now it is, but
Now.
I wouldn't really call it full time because one of the best thing I liked about this was the flexibility that
Mm.
I have now.
Right.
I can do whatever hours I really want to do. At the moment, I'm literally just putting in 3 to 4 hours a day,
Mm.
and that's the calls itself. But the rest of the day, I'm just, you know, working on other things at the same time as well.
Oh, that's awesome. So you have the time freedom and flexibility behind it, which is what attracts a lot of people into it, I feel like. And I want to talk about you talked about how you were an accountant and you felt like it wasn't something that you want to do long term. Was there like an aha moment or like a incident that made you feel that there's probably better things out there specifically for you?
I mean, I knew there was better things out there, right? Because I've seen myself grow. One of the things I'm sure you can probably relate to as well, right? You've seen we work together on one of the, with one of the influencer.
Right.
Wherever I put my head and mind into, I'll make sure I'll be successful at it,
Mm.
right? So it was really about finding an opportunity that makes me feel this is worth the effort. And when closing came around, I looked into the idea and I'm like, actually, yes, it's not going to be easy, right? And luckily, going through a friend who actually taught me, he was open and honest about the fact that he's teaching us a skill, right? But that doesn't essentially mean that, straight away you're going to make 10K a month. The
Right.
potential is there, no doubt, but it's just that you have to put the effort into it. So I knew if I'm given the right opportunity, right, Obviously, coming from a Muslim background, there's certain things I do stay away from, right? So certain things I don't want to get involved in at all. But
Right.
I've had opportunities in the past as well where I just didn't feel comfortable going into them. So when I came to this one, it was ticking all the boxes, and I was like, you know what, this is something now I should dedicate my rest of my next few months and see what I can make out of it.
Gotcha. Now let's talk about the learning curve, right? I'm because you come from a very traditional corporate background, uh, doing the regular 9 to 5, and all of a sudden you were looking into an opportunity. Was there like any moments where you're like, you know what, this definitely is something I want to go all in? Because I know we talked about as long as you put in your mind, you know you're going to do well in it. But obviously, as human beings, you can't. Obviously, you're going to question yourself about doubts. Like, tell me about that journey, how the learning curve for you.
So I think what that really relates to is having that mindset, right? It's the shift of coming out, the 9 to 5 employee getting certain amount of money coming in every month,
Right.
and then almost going outside of the box. So naturally, the people who know me really well, I'm actually an introvert. So if you see me in public, you probably won't see me mixing with people a lot more. And then comes sales, and you're like, you have to be the most talkative person, relating to people's personal life story and stuff.
Right.
And that to me was actually something outside of the box. So for me, initially was okay. That's challenging for myself as well to start off with. Secondly, coming up with someone who's actually spent years becoming a qualified accountant, and I know again, accountancy has its value, it has its place, right? I know a lot of accountants make a lot of money, and then I'm thinking, okay, so you've spent all those years learning a skill, going through hard exams, working and doing exams at the same time. Now, all of a sudden, you decided to walk away from it. But what really helped me, and I think it goes back to with a lot of people when they are choosing something, is how strong is your why,
Hmm.
right? In my case, the reason I wanted to make a change for myself was two things. Firstly, I was fed up of the whole corporate structure that you have, right, where having to answer to a manager every 3 weeks or every 3 months or 6 months. You got reviews, and it's a lot of objective stuff going on, right? And it's almost like you're always working to please somebody else,
Hmm.
right? And if they had a bad day on one day, and even though if it's not your fault, you can still get some of the bad vibes coming down your way. And with work being a situation where you're spending almost what 8 to 9 hours a day, right? That's most part of your, in my case, in my adult life, right? I'm at work.
Right.
And what I was getting through a stage where I was taking that baggage home, so it starts mixing in your private life, right? So for me, the why was I need to break out of that, whole corporate world, and just the spiral of, okay, the next promotion, you just keep going down the same way. Second one was obviously getting some more time back, because in February actually, when I just started closing, I had my first child was born,
Right.
and I was away from work for about 2 weeks, and I was like, do you know what? I actually really enjoy this.
Hmm.
Do I really want to go back to a full-time job and not being able to spend time, with my kid? And I was like, okay, those were the two whys. So my stronger why was actually this is my opportunity that I've been looking for a while to come out of my current situation.
Hmm.
Now I have to do everything I can to make it work, because I know it's out there. People have been successful with it. So it's really about my effort now to make sure that I'll make it happen for myself as well.
Gotcha. Uh, Now, when you first start off, I mean, you're always gonna go that roller coaster, right? Uh, what made you? Obviously, your why was probably the main thing, but how do you always maintain like a peak state of mind that you will be successful no matter what? Because even though, like a corporate job, for an example, like you said, even though it's not your fault, like all the blame is on you, right? So how can you like during a sales when you had no prior experience to always have that sharp mentality and stay consistent, would you say was a big factor?
There was two things really. Firstly, as you know, me and my brother were together doing everything, right? So we learned together, we had supported each other.
Mm.
and we were both really competitive, right?
Nice.
So we hold ourselves to a higher standard. And when we were dropping down, the best thing we had was we had each other to help ourselves up, right? Because yeah, I'll be very honest. Some of the some of the outbound calls and the reach we were doing initially. I mean, that was draining, right?
Right.
You're sitting there trying to call people, trying to find out if they're going to listen to you or not. So having somebody else who's going through the same pain, essentially, they told you, okay, you know what? Yes, it's difficult, but if you keep working, the results will follow, right? And the second thing was really, I look back at my old experiences when it comes to my life, right? Everything I've done so far, I'm one of those people who learns from his mistake, right? I don't generally get it right the first time, and I think that's most people, right? But the difference between me and most people would be I'll get it wrong 10 times, but I'll get up 11 times and still try, right? Whereas someone will try a third time and the fourth time they will give up. For me, every single time I failed, I saw this as an opportunity that was getting me closer to my better version,
Mm.
right? In calls where I didn't close, in the month where I didn't get the numbers I wanted, I could easily go back and say, okay, if I've had these experiences, but from the past, wherever I have been persistent, I carried on. The results have followed, and it was the same mentality I was bringing into this as well. And eventually, I came across a formula that really worked well for not just for myself, for other people in the team as well. And that was really the springboard that I needed. And once you have that first bit of success, it may not be the biggest victory just yet.
Right.
It's just knowing that you're working on something that works. That's all you need. Then you see a lot of motivation coming from inside you. You say, okay, now you're on the right path. You just push through it now.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah, I think that's what people get confused of, right? Like, uh, if we asked anyone who wants to become a millionaire, everyone wants to raise their hands, but if you ask them, all right, who wants to put 10 hours a day and grind and work their face off, barely little people do, right? Because they look at the success rather than the actual work. So it just I remember like my first sale ever when I first got into sales. It took me like 17 after talking to 17 prospects. They finally bought, right? And
Mm.
it just talks about because the numbers will always fall into you as long as you try because the law of numbers will always come. But there was that moment where because I was just a young 20-year-old kid when it started sales. I think I was like 21 or 22, not very the sharpest kid who just wants to make an extra money. A shift happened to me when because in the company I used to work for before we used to work together is that we used to ask clients what made you want to buy, what was the three reasons why you bought, and the client looked at me and said, Bumu, we're doing this because of you, right? It's like I was like, what? We just met an hour and a half ago and they bought on the same day. So it was just shocking to me. But was there any like moments where you're like, oh man, I'm glad I'm doing this job. This is the reason, the reward that I'm doing for. This is the reason why I'm that pumped me up. Was there any like moments that you knew that this was the career path for you, or that this is something you want to keep on pursuing?
Yes, so I think in terms of the results, right, the other side of it is what we're doing in sales, especially some of the packages and stuff that we worked on, it's actually giving other people a chance, not necessarily the full packaged opportunity, but a chance to actually come out of their current situation and get to a better self, right? So obviously with a lot of people that we spoke to, especially the kind of clients we were dealing with at the time, a lot of people you can resonate with them because they're going for the exact same pain, right? It could
Right.
be any other job, but it's the same pain, right? So when I go into all of that, I spoke to people, and when you understand their story, and some of the people that did actually end up buying and stuff, right? It's almost like I felt happy because I know I've given someone a chance to be a better version of themselves, right? One thing I can't guarantee or control, right, is the effort they're going to put in.
Right.
So the best I could have done for them was to give them an opportunity that I know has potential. Now, what they make out of it is going back to their motivation, their why, their effort, and their commitment. And that's the same thing with almost everything you do in life, right?
Right.
Whether it's business, whether it's anything else you're doing. The thing that drives people is their own motivation. No one can come and motivate you unless you're motivated from within yourself to do something.
Right. That's
So as long as you have that, that will help you go to the next level.
right. It just truly brings back the aspect that's mindset rather than how would I explain it? Like there's people who like it just goes back to the employee mindset, right? You can treat something like a hobby, it'll pay you like a hobby. If you treat it like a business, they say it'll pay you like a business. But I want to go to your schedule because I think you had one of the most craziest schedules, if I remember correctly. You were working full time as an accountant on your corporate job, and you were almost close to closing full time doing leadership positions, and you had a newborn daughter since February. How was your schedule looking like? How were you able to manage that?
Yes, first few months were hectic, I must say, right? It wasn't a walk in the park, just like anything else. And obviously, being new on the team and you proving yourself, all of a sudden, you get people reaching out to you and asking for help as well. So initially, what would happen was, luckily, obviously, the lockdown happened in a bad way. You can say pandemic happened, and I was actually working from home most of the time,
Right.
which meant that I could finish off one job and then just have a bit of break and start the other one.
Mm.
So what would happen usually is 5 o'clock I would log off from my other job. You would then have an hour break or something, and then you start the other one. With closing, the good thing was, not every hour that you put in is going to be booked calls,
Right.
right? So as long as you're available, doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have calls for sure.
Right.
And obviously with outbound that we were doing, for me it was more like it wasn't even about having my calendar open anymore because it was me reaching out to the people. So I worked out the best schedule for myself. So I knew from because being in the UK, my target audience was in the US. I knew there's a prime time. There's a lot of people do respond, right?
Right.
So like, I made sure I'm available for that particular time, and everything else around that. So whether it's family time, dinner time, or wherever. I usually initially I remember when I first started, me and my brother used to sit there till like 2, 3 in the morning, and you then switch, you sleep, and then you start again the next day.
Right.
But as we started getting better, because obviously you saw, the results I got from outbound going into inbound to the leadership position that you mentioned.
Right.
As you start going yourself, the one thing I've always seen, whenever you start proving yourself to somebody at any level, whether it's work, job, or anything like that, and you win their trust, right? You then become in a very good position to actually make things your own way,
Mm.
right? So that's what allowed me to be in a position now. I'm still consistently getting the results they want me to get, and it's not even about them. It's actually about me, right? If
Right.
I close, I get more money. It's simple as that.
Right.
If I don't close, I don't get any money. So it's more about having a consistent income stream for myself that obviously replace my job. But at the same time, now I'm in a position where I've got that balance. I know I want to work this many hours for this. I know if I do this many hours, I can make this much money,
Right.
right? Once that's taken care of, the rest of the time is, you can do whatever really. And now, obviously, one of the good things you want to be doing is be able to invest in other things as well. So not just do one thing. Once you've done well at it, there's no point of actually dedicating your life there because then you go into an employee mindset again.
Good point. Good point. Yeah. So for those who don't know, Nawaz has and I used to work for an influencer with multiple packages where we had to reach out to people cold, not really cold, but were interested. They just never was able to opt in to learn more info. And there was the inbound side where we do a done for you service where people all they do is pay the service and we do halfway through the business for them and they do the other half depending on what package they choose. So for those who don't know the context, uh, but yeah, Noah's, uh, I want to learn more about your schedule. I know it's I know I'm going back to it, but did you always like plan it like a week ahead, couple days ahead, or the day before ahead? I was just curious on how'd you plan it because you you went gradually up. I was just wondering how you were able to dissect and really capitalize on your schedule as your role was increasing.
Yeah, so initially, it was like I mentioned, the grind that you had to put in to work out what works and what doesn't work,
Right.
right? Once I knew what was working, once we came up with the strategy and the outbound as well, like I said, my time input was gone down a lot,
Mm.
right? So where before I would have to do 5, 6 hours on closing calls and trying to work out, reach out to people, with the new strategy, I could have get everything done within a few hours, right? And then the rest of it was more like follow up and you trying to find out exactly whether it works for us or not.
Right.
And that was really helpful for me because once I got to that stage where again I knew this is the method that works, you do refine it as you go along because you're always learning, something new comes up.
Right.
But now you have a core method that you're following, right?
Right.
That method alone saved me a few hours a day, right? At the same time, I knew I could afford to have off days or days where I may not speak to anyone. And there was literally almost sometimes a week gone by not speaking to anyone. Because what I was doing was literally speaking to people, nurturing them, finding out what they really need,
Mm.
right? And then matching what we're offering. If I could genuinely help them, then I will get a call with them because that's when you start valuing your own time, right? And you value the person's change in life as well.
Right.
Once I know it's something that we can help them and they have the, you know, funds necessary for it, the commitment necessary for it, and the desire to make it work, only then I'll get on a call. By the time I get on a call with them, it's way much, qualified lead, which I think even 50 to 100% better than inbound calls, because this is a person that you build so much relationship
Relationship.
with
Right.
that they trust you in a completely different way,
Right.
right? When I got on a phone call, I knew it will be worth my time because once I closed them, which was the most of the, almost 90% of the time, that was the outcome. I've made the money. I haven't killed myself over trying to reach out to everyone.
Right.
Once you know a process that works, that allowed me, because initially, like I said, I was doing like 6, 7 hours or 8 hours in closing, doing day job as well.
Right.
Once the strategy came up, it started working. Then I knew this many hours and this particular time is when I need to spend on closing,
Right.
right? And then I started to take a step back slowly, slowly. So as I started going up in the team, my methods had to change slightly because obviously the person we were dealing with, the clients we were dealing with changed. Coming from somebody who may have no money whatsoever to invest, now dealing with clients who are millionaires essentially, right? It's a completely different ballgame.
Right.
So you had to adapt for that. But with that also came a situation where I could actually grow within my skills. At the same time, it gave me the ability to actually refine my structure and schedule even more, right? Because now, because we're working with a different audience, I realize their availability is different,
Right.
right? So that's when I pulled it back even further, right? And then now, because obviously since October, I haven't been working at all. I just take the calls during my afternoon time, which is US morning time,
Right.
right? And then the rest of the day, I'm just doing something else, whatever I want to do, really.
Beautiful. Um, I now for those who don't know the context, Nawaz used to spoke to B2C clients, and now as he moved up the position, he was speaking to millionaires who was B2B, which has more assets, but very very cutthroat people because all they want to do is get their information, get what they want, and that's it to them, right? So I was curious, what do you like better, B2C or B2B, personally?
Um, it's a funny one, B2C took a lot of time.
Yes.
Literally, I would be spending almost 90 minutes to 2 hours sometimes, right? Usually the course would be at least 60 to 90 minutes. That was a given. B2B, on the other hand, much more logical. Tell me the numbers if it makes sense. We'll talk about it.
Right.
The calls are much quicker with them, right? But here's the fun part. People who have money, they don't just throw their money everywhere, right? They're very smart with their investments.
Right.
So this is what I meant. You learn from your skills
Mistake.
essentially, where you now need to be you have to present yourself as someone who's an expert in the field,
Right.
someone who's not phased by their status or the prospect, right? They may be a millionaire, but they came on a call because they had a need that we can resolve,
Right.
right? So I do enjoy that part of the thing, right? And one of the things I've built up over time is challenging nature.
Hmm.
And that I think comes more to the B2B side. So I do definitely enjoy B2B more, I would say.
That's awesome. Now, we're getting close to wrapping things up. Um, what are some of your goals, man, that you have for yourself and moving forward as time goes on?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, I'm looking into different investments now. So,
Mm.
maybe having an Amazon store myself, looking at the business opportunities as well, see where I can expand. Because initial goal obviously is to make consistent say 10K a month from closing,
Right.
right? Once I achieve that, it will give me the extra funds that I can invest in other places, right? The time is already there to an extent, so I just about getting the next thing that I can invest in. At the moment, I'm actually looking into Amazon myself. So that's something I will be working on in the next few months, I would say. But it's just about looking at different avenues of income where you can decrease your own input, time input, and effort as well. So that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Gotcha. Well, as we are wrapping them up, we do a quick game. First thing comes first. So I'm gonna bring up a word or phrase, and you just tell me the first thing that comes up in your mind. There's no wrong or right answer. Um,
So
Sales.
it's fun.
Your future.
It's good for those who want to make it.
Hmm. Your
Or
dog.
actually, I should say, future is what you make of it.
Hmm.
That's better. Yeah.
Gotcha. Um, your biggest challenge in 2020.
The biggest challenge I think was time management. Like I mentioned, I had a lot going on, but as we're going into further 2021, I'm overcoming that challenge, as we speak essentially. So yeah, I would say time was the biggest challenge.
Um, your biggest win in 2020.
The biggest win was actually not financial, but taking back control of my own schedule.
Beautiful. Um, and your last question would be your daughter.
She's something else, man. Whenever I see her, it's completely different. That was my why. That got me where it got me right now. So I think without her, I probably would still be an accountant.
That's awesome. Uh, what's the message that you have for your future self in 5, 10 years?
It's about believing in myself, right? That's the hardest part when we go through failures, essentially. You know, you start doubting yourself. You start doubting your methods. You start doubting everything you've done in the past, right? So for me, it's just about making sure, you know, stay consistent. Just remember all the wins you've had in the past and the path you followed.
Hmm.
And it's actually quite funny because when I mentioned this, I remember when we first got into sales as well, it was the exact same thing. Me and my brother actually both sat down. We looked at the path of all the things we've achieved in the past. And we were like, actually, we did put a lot of effort in, but we did get there in the end. Right? So it's for everyone else as well out there. Just work out how do you work best,
Hmm.
right? Don't follow just because someone else is successful in making 8 figures, 9 figures, even more than what you're making essentially, or they have more than what you are looking for. Just because they're following a way that works for them, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. You're two completely different individuals,
Right.
right? You are putting your individuality online and trying to say whatever someone else is doing is perfect for me. More often than not, that's not possible.
That's awesome. I think the biggest lesson people can learn from this is, like you said over and over again, the message is clear: is that you got to define your own method of doing things. You got to define your own schedule. You got to define your own skills and define different ways how to believe in yourself, right? Because I think everyone's trying to be a copycat. This person did this, so I got to do this, do that. And I hope people look at this message because you don't always have to be the person buying real estate, the person doing this e commerce site. I think they just gotta truly believe in who they are rather than believe in other people, because I think the most priceless investment people can make is themselves. You know.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a really good saying as well. If you follow the crowd, the further you can get is just where they get, right? So be the disruptor. Ask yourself questions and don't be afraid to actually challenge yourself and take a different path to somebody else. That's the only way you're gonna get to somewhere else. If you're following someone else's path, you're only gonna get where they got to, essentially.
That is so awesome. Well, Nawaz, thank you so much for your time. For those who are new, please like and subscribe if you guys like content like this. And we'll see you guys on the next one. Thank you so much, Nawaz.
Thanks, Burma.